and 28b, and we were discussing this law about Hallel on Rosh Chodesh. That's really the topic of discussion here. Really interesting. A lot of people, they think of Tractate Taanis as like, oh, it's just stories or whatever. It's so filled with practical
Halacha
halachas
l'maisa.
that are the source of many of the traditions and rulings. There's a tremendous amount of laws that are learned out of every single page in this tractate, and so one of them has to do with Hallel. And as we saw in Shulchan Aruch, there seems to be a major argument in regard to Hallel on Rosh Chodesh. This is a major topic of discussion. It's based on our Gemara, and we saw in Shulchan Aruch about it in chapter 422. And again, what we saw there was that on Rosh Chodesh you skip the two paragraphs in the Hallel, whether an individual reads it or a congregation reads it, and then the Shulchan Aruch brought Yesh Omrim. Some say that an individual does not say a bracha, only a congregation, a tzibur. If you're with a shul, a minyan, you say a bracha, but a yachid is an einay mevarich. And then we saw that some say even a congregation doesn't say a bracha, not at the beginning and not at the end. And he says that's the opinion of the Rambam. And the Ramah says some say that even an individual does say a bracha. And that seems to be the Ashkenazi custom. And we said that the Sephardic custom is that no one says a bracha. And but there is a three-way argument. Either everyone says a bracha, no one says a bracha, or only a congregation says a bracha, and not if you daven b'yechidus, not if you daven individually as an individual. And this also has halachic ramifications if a person comes late to shul. If a person comes late to shul, so if you need to, it's only recited in a community and not not as an individual, then definitely it would seem apropos to recite the Hallel with the community. Now, what it boils down to is this question of reciting a bracha on a minhag. And that's what we were discussing yesterday about reciting a bracha on a minhag. What are the sources for such a thing, or is it appropriate, or is it not appropriate? So what I wanted to do today was go through the Tosfos over here, not necessarily inside, but at least the points of Tosfos. Tosfos is a very powerful, very important Tosfos over here, which is based on this discussion of reciting Hallel on Rosh Chodesh on the new month. So Tosfos over here says that Shema Mina, we hear from this story that Rava says, I hear from this, not from the story, but from the fact that they skipped. I hear from this that it's a minhag avisehem biyadehem, that this is just a custom. And they're not saying Hallel on Rosh Chodesh because they're obligated to. They're saying it because it's a custom. And this is the story that our Gemara brought. And it's very important to just get this, have the story.
Yeah, I'm not sure I want it right now.
Let me mute everyone. So the story is that the Gemara says that Rava. One second. Let me pull up the story over here. I'm sorry. The story is that Rav went to Bavel and he saw that they were saying Hallel, and he wanted to stop them. And when he saw that they skipped 2 paragraphs, or at least they skipped, and I'm assuming it's the same 2 paragraphs that we skip it. So he said, I see from this that it's just a minhag, and they're not saying it as an obligation. They're doing it as a minhag. It's a minhag, and they're skipping. They're not saying the whole Hallel, so it's okay. It's fine. I'm not going to stop them. And then the Gemara says, Tana, there was a Tana that taught Yachid shouldn't start Hallel, but if he did, Goymer, he finishes the Hallel, which the commentaries say means that he finishes the Hallel, but he does skip the 2 paragraphs. If he started it, he finishes it, but he should skip the paragraphs that we all skipped, because you're definitely not. It's not one of the days that you're obligated to say Hallel. It's a minhag aviseihem b'yadeihem. Now, the truth is, we all say Hallel, even an individual. And the reason is because we already sort of like accepted it on ourselves, and it became a minhag. It became accepted, even though it's not an obligation, or it wasn't initially an obligation. It was initially an individual didn't need to say Hallel. Okay, so the story here is going to be the topic, is going to be a source of the halacha, the way Tosfos sees it. In other words, what do you take out from this story? Do you think they said a bracha on Hallel, or did they not say a bracha? Again, Rav went to this shul in Bavel. He came to Bavel, and when he was there, he davened in shul, and he saw that they said Hallel. He initially was a little shocked, and then he said, "Oh, they're skipping. It's no problem." So, does it sound like they said a bracha on the Hallel, or they did not say a bracha on the Hallel?
Don't think they said a bracha.
So, one way of understanding the story would be they didn't say a bracha on the Hallel. Now, if they didn't say a bracha on the Hallel, the problem would be, why did Rav wait for them to skip and then say, oh, they're skipping, they're not really doing it as an obligation? Rav could have seen from the fact that they didn't say a bracha that this is just a minhag. It's a minhag that they're saying Hallel. So he should have initially already figured out that there's no problem here with what they're doing, because they're not even saying a bracha. They're just saying some tilim. They're saying a Hallel, a minhag, but they're not saying a bracha. So it's a minhag. I was saying to be a dayim. It's just a minhag. There's no problem. He waited for them to skip. So the bracha part, if they didn't say a bracha, it does seem a little surprising, the story. So then you're going to say, well, maybe they did say a bracha. So if they did say a bracha, it comes out, and he finds out later that this is a minhag aviseihem b'yadeihem. This is just a minhag. This is a custom. So it comes out that you see from here that you can recite a bracha on a minhag. You can recite a bracha on a minhag, on a custom. And as I explained yesterday, that because the custom was a custom that's established, accepted by the rabbis, it becomes like a case of loisasur min hadavar asher yigidu lecha yamin usmail. Don't turn away from the things that the rabbis tell you. And you could even say that Hashem commanded me to follow this. So in other words, the way Tosfos understands the story is that the people of this town in Bavel said a bracha. Because if they didn't say a bracha, Rav would never have had a problem in the first place. It must be they did say a bracha, and they said a bracha, and yet Rav sees later that this bracha that they said was on a minhag, and no problem. He had no problems with them. They said they skipped stuff in halal, so they didn't say the full halal. It was obviously just a minhag, and they said a bracha, and Rav seemed to be fine with that. So according to this, you see that you can recite a bracha on a minhag. Now, there's really one step further that this has to go, and that is the individual who wants to say halal, for him, there's not officially a minhag. The official minhag is a congregation, is a tzibur. But can an individual accept on himself the minhag that's already accepted by the congregation and then recite a bracha? And on this, Taisa says that's also acceptable. That if an individual wants to say halal and he says it, he says a bracha as well. And this is a topic of another dispute amongst the commentaries, because is that acceptable to say a bracha for an individual? And that we saw in Shulchan Aruch. So we have three opinions in the Shulchan Aruch. One opinion was that everyone says a bracha, and that would follow this logic that you say a bracha on a minhag, and even an individual could say a bracha, because the individual can accept on himself that minhag and recite a bracha, because you could say a bracha on a minhag, and that would be this Tosfos's view that everyone can say a bracha. But then there's a opinion that the individual doesn't say a bracha, only a congregation, and that would be the view that you could say a bracha on a minhag, but that would only apply to the original minhag that was a congregation says halal, but an individual doesn't say halal. And then you have the opinion that you cannot say a bracha on a minhag at all, and that view would have to understand our Gemara to be that they didn't say a bracha because it's only a minhag. And you'd have to learn maybe that Rav wasn't, maybe came late, or he wasn't there in shul, or he didn't see. But the fact is, you cannot say a bracha on a minhag. Now, these opinions about reciting a bracha on a minhag or not reciting a bracha on a minhag.
He was still davening Shemona Esrei.
Yeah, he was right, exactly. Maybe he was still davening Shemona Esrei. So these opinions about saying a bracha on a minhag or not saying a bracha on a minhag do need to be reconciled with a Gemara in Sukkah. Why? Because the Gemara in Sukkah talks about Hoshana Rabbah, talks about the special day of Hoshana Rabbah, the seventh day of Sukkot. And it talks about over there that there's a minhag of Nevi'im to either wave the arava on Hoshana Rabbah or to bang it on the floor. Different opinions in the commentaries what the word chavoit means. Does it mean to wave it, or does it mean to bang it on the floor? But basically, they did some type of ceremony with the aravos, with the willows, on the seventh day of Sukkot. And we, of course, continue this minhag. And today, we take the aravos and we bang them. We bang them 5 times on the floor. And so we continue. We add maybe about 20 minutes of extra prayers or more in shul on Hoshana Rabbah. And we make a ceremony about the aravos, about the willows, the aravos ceremony. So the Gemara there in Sukkah makes it pretty clear that they did not recite a bracha on the aravos. Because the Gemara says stories. They brought the aravos to Abaye and Rabbi Yitzchok, and I was standing in front of Rabbi Yitzchok. They brought aravos in front of him, and he took it and he chavit. He either waved it or he banged it. and he did not say a bracha, and he held that it's a minhag neviim. So you see from there, seems to be a solid source that on a custom you do not recite a bracha. So we have been talking about halal here, and we came up with a conclusion from our Gemara, from the story in our Gemara, that it must be that Rav was in Shul and he saw them saying a bracha. At least, Taisus is a way of understanding the story, which makes, he seems to prove it, that they must have said a bracha, and that's why he had to wait to see if they skipped. Then he realized that it's only a minute. But the bracha part, they must have said. So we see in our Gemara this idea of saying a bracha on a minute, but the Gemara in Sukkah clearly states that they didn't say a bracha on a minute. So how do you reconcile these two Gemaras? So
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, you talk about bracha. I'm assuming you're talking about the bracha at the beginning. Okay, but there's also a bracha at the end.
Right.
Okay, our minhag is that if you're doing it alone, you don't say that bracha at all. You don't even say that paragraph that includes the bracha in that.
Right.
So
right.
my question is, what is the minhag of with respect to that last bracha in general?
So in Shulchan Aruch, it mentions about your minhag not to say a bracha even in the end. It mentions that. However, there seems to be reason that the bracha at the end could be in a different category, because you don't say Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu. The bracha at the end does not have a statement saying Hashem commanded us. So seemingly the bracha at the end should be more lenient than the bracha in the beginning. But in Shulchan Aruch it says that B'yesh oimrim shehatzibar mevarchan olav b'tchila likrayas ahalal v'lebsayif yahalalucha v'hayachid eina mevarach olav. It says that the tzibur says both brachas. That was one opinion. Then he says that the yachid doesn't make the bracha on it, although it doesn't say it so clear what that means. Does it just mean the first bracha? B'yesh oimrim. Yachid eina mevarach olav.
It's like how far his mother said.
And then Shulchan Aruch says, and some say even the tzibur doesn't say a bracha, not in the beginning and not at the end. So there definitely is reason not to say a bracha at the end as well, and that's the opinion of the Rambam. And so even though logically the bracha at the end, should be a little more lenient, because you're not saying Asher Kedeshanu b'mitzvaysav. But I guess the reason would be if you don't say a bracha in the beginning, then you wouldn't. In other words, it's sort of a one long prayer where you start with the bracha and end with the bracha. And if you don't say the first bracha, maybe you wouldn't end with the final bracha. So I'm not 100% sure if the other opinions, if there's room to say that like, for example, this opinion that says that the individual does not say a bracha on it, would that opinion hold? And maybe at the end, the individual would say a bracha. So in other words, a tzibur could say a bracha. But an individual, this would be the opinion of, let's say, Rabbeinu Hananel or the Rif. So the question would be, if an individual would say a bracha at the end. Again, it's a little vague in the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch just says Einay Mevarich Olav. So maybe there's room to say a bracha at the end. If you get what I'm saying, like the end brachas should be more lenient. So I'd have to look it up and see if any what the other, if there's any clarity in that. Okay, so Taisus over here, we're stuck with this question because there seems to be a contradiction between the bracha on a minhag that our Gemara seems to accept, at least the way Taisus learns it, and the bracha on a minhag from Tractate Sukkah. And the way Taisus over here answers is that the arava, the willow waving, that is a minhag. That's only movement. You're just moving a willow. It's only in such a minhag you don't say a bracha. It's only tiltul bialma. It says it's just the type of waving, a type of movement, doing some movement with the willow. So it's just called tiltul. It's not in such a thing. You don't say a bracha. But other minhagim, reading Hallel, so on, and other things, those minhagim, for sure you should say a bracha, and that's a halacha l'maisa, and you can't talk in the middle of Hallel because you said a bracha, otherwise you're mafsik, and Taisus does end off that an individual is not mechuyev to say Hallel. If he wants, he could be mechayev himself. If he wants, he could be mechayev himself and say Hallel. And the understanding of the commentaries in Taisus is that and recite a bracha as well. So that's the Taisus over here, and it sheds some light on the. Oh, I see Ezra just wrote something here. Let me just pull up this chat. I don't see it, Ezra. I don't know why I can't see the chat. 1 second. You want to tell us what you wrote?
I'll read. I said, just looked into the Sephardic Siddur.
Oh.
It says that on days that you are doleg, such as Rosh Chodesh, actually any time that you're doleg, then you don't say the last paragraph that includes the end bracha. And that applies to the tzibur as a whole. Not only to the
not only to the individual.
Right.
Right. So that would be that would be that final view in Shulchan Aruch that says clearly that view. It says clearly that even a tzibur doesn't say a bracha not at the beginning and not at the end, and that's the opinion of the Rambam. So that's I'm wondering about the other view that says a tzibur says a bracha betchila and b'soif, but an individual doesn't say a bracha on it. And what would be if they said Hallel, the individual? Would they say a bracha? In other words, the word alav doesn't say a bracha on it. Would that emphasize maybe the bracha, the initial bracha? Because that's the bracha that's on the Hallel. The final bracha maybe would not be called a mevarich alav. Maybe it's maybe the person in the end could possibly recite it. Again, it's a little vague in the Shulchan Aruch. It doesn't say clearly. So I guess it could be. We could try to look it up and see if there's any clarity for sure of a clear cut view. If he says if an individual, according to the opinion that an individual doesn't say that an individual cannot say a bracha, would they be allowed to say the final bracha? And the reason why there could be room to say it is because you don't say v'tzivanu that Hashem commanded us. You can't say that, but the final bracha doesn't have v'tzivanu. So maybe there's room to say the final bracha. Okay. Anyway, the bottom line is over here that the minhag we know the minhag of Ashkenaz and Sfard, different minhagim, and it's based on the opinions on our Gemara. Okay, so now we go back. Let's see. Let's continue from where we left off, and that is at the 2 dots. Yes,
I
David.
just posted something in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Let's see if I could see it here.
Some suggest that it became customary in Babylonia to recite Hallel on the new moon to distinguish between that day and ordinary days. However, in Eretz Yisrael, there was no need to take any steps to stress this unique aspect of the day, as the new moon was proclaimed in Eretz Yisrael, and the additional offering was sacrificed in Jerusalem, and the temple was standing. Sefer Hashlama Meira. Yes, there's a whole discussion of why did it become a minhag, and that's what David is bringing. What is the reason for such a minhag? Why did we start this minhag of saying Hallel on Rosh Chodesh? So David brought the reason for such a minhag is one of the reasons is that this is to emphasize to show to tell people that that it's Rosh Chodesh, and in Eretz Yisrael everyone knew that it's Rosh Chodesh, and they didn't need to because the new moon, there was a in Eretz Yisrael everyone knew about the Rosh Chodesh. It was proclaimed there in Eretz Yisrael, but Chutz La'aretz it wasn't proclaimed. So
Rabbi?
therefore, there's reason to say Hallel. So it would like tell the congregation to say Hallel.
Rabbi,
Thank
was-
you, thank you for.
I want to
was
mention
why-
that it seems to
Just-
me that Hallel,
Moshe, just 1 second. But in Chutz La'aretz, and also in Eretz Yisrael, they did bring a carbon. But in Chutz La'aretz, you didn't have that, and therefore there's reason to stress that it's Rosh Chodesh. Yasha Koyach David, good. That's a very important insight. Yes, Moshe.
it seems to be that Hallel is a way of starting fresh every month. That's why it seems that this is why it may be a minhag, because it's a fresh start each month. And the nigunim and everything that's associated with it gives a person a I don't want to get subjective, but it seems to me that it is a way of having a fresh start each month. The new moon,
So you want to say that the Hallel is thanking Hashem and praising Hashem that you get a fresh start.
a fresh start each month. Yeah, that's correct.
So it's praising Hashem, about the fresh start. Okay, that sounds like a nice insight. Okay, I just want to summarize here. So we have the Rambam that
Rabbi.
says, yeah.
Yeah, just one thing. This thing that I posted, this was connected. They're saying that this was the reason that Rav, when he was coming, he was unfamiliar with the custom of saying Hallel on Rosh Chodesh because he was from Bavel. He was from Eretz Yisrael, and that's why
Right.
there was a difference between Eretz Yisrael and Bavel, because in Eretz Yisrael was where the new moon was being proclaimed.
Right, gotcha.
In Bavel, yeah.
Gotcha. It gives a little explanation of why didn't Rav know about this
Right.
until now.
Right.
Right. So there is discussion a little about Tosfos's way of reconciling the difference between some minhagim. Seems like we do say a bracha, and then you have that minhag about arava that you don't say a bracha. So what exactly does Tosfos mean that it's only waving? How do you translate that? So there is an explanation that when it comes to something that's an actual mitzvah, so even though for you it's only you're doing it as a minhag now, but it's something that's done as a mitzvah, and therefore there would be reason to say a bracha because it's similar to an actual act of mitzvah. It is an act of mitzvah. But the arava, the fact that they would wave the arava, that was not a mitzvah, and it's not it's not an act of a mitzvah. So it's a minhag that's not a mitzvah. While the minhag of Hallel is a minhag that's an act of a mitzvah as well. In other words, it's done different times of the year as a mitzvah. So when you do that minhag, which is actually a mitzvah, that carries with it a sense of that you could say a bracha, because it's a mitzvah type of act. Being that it's a mitzvah type of act, you can say Hashem commanded us to do this. Not exactly in this scenario, but it's a mitzvah act, and therefore there could be a bracha on it. While the other act of just waving so again, the question is, what does Tosfos really mean when he says this is just waving and you don't say a bracha on waving? Does he mean physically it's a small act, and saying Hallel is a big thing? It's a much holier act, or does he mean that maybe this is a mitzvah act and that's an act that's not connected throughout the year or any other time with a mitzvah, and therefore maybe you wouldn't say a bracha on such a minhag. Anyway, the different ways of interpreting the point, the reason of Tosfos. We're going to jump back to the Gemara now, and the Gemara was going to tell us a little about the other fast days that we had in the Mishnah, and those fast days were Shiva Asar B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, and so we are on page 28b, and we are up to the Hey Devarim, the 5 things that Iru es Aviseinu b'Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, that happened to our fathers on Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. Okay, so that is 28b, about 5, 10, 15, 20, maybe 23, 24 lines from the bottom. If you're in the art scroll, it is 28b2, 28b2, the second column. Hey Dvarim, Iru es Aviseinu b'Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. There's 5 things that happened to our ancestors on the 17th day of Tammuz. And the Mishnah on page 26 mentioned all these things that happened, and it mentioned Nishtabru Haluchos, that the tablets were broken, and Batalat Tamid, the Tamid offering, which was the daily offering, was discontinued, and different views of when that happened. Huvka Ha'ir, the city, the wall was breached on the 17th of Tammuz, the Romans, and the Pustamus burned the Torah, and he put an image in the Beis Hamikdash, and the different opinions. Is this Menashe or is this Pustamus who put the image in the Beis Hamikdash? And then you have Tisha B'Av, the different things that happened on Tisha B'Av. Okay, so our Gemara now is going to talk about the breaking of the luchos. Hey Dvarim, Iru as Aviseinu b'Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. The 5 things that happened to our ancestors on Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. Nishtabru haluchos minawah. How do we know that the tablets were broken the 17th day of Tammuz? When were the tablets broken? They were broken when Moshe came down from the mountain. When did Moshe come down from the mountain? So he was there right after God gave us the revelation at Sinai, which was Shavuos. Went up for 40 days. There was a miscalculation of 40. It's either 40 or 41 or 39. It was basically a miscalculation. They thought it was 40 days. They started worshiping the golden calf. And Moshe came down the next day and they saw what they were doing. He smashed the tablets. So we're dealing with an episode that's approximately 40 days after Shavuos. The Gemara says, how do we know that it was the breaking of the tablets was the 17th? The Tanya, because we learned in a brayso. The revelation at Sinai, Aseres HaDibros, the 10 Commandments, were given on the 6th day of Sivan, and Rabbi Yossi Aimer b'Shiva B'Av. Rabbi Yossi says it was the 7th of Sivan. So there's an argument exactly what day was it was it the the sixth day or the seventh day when Hashem gave the Torah, in which basically means called out the 10 Commandments. Now, Manda Amar B'Shisha Nitnu, the opinion that says that the Torah was given in the Aseret HaDibros, the revelation happened on the 6th, B'Shisha Nitnu, U'B'Shiva Ala Moshe. That opinion holds that the 6th was when we were given the 10 Commandments, but on the 7th day is when Moshe went up to Har Sinai, to Mount Sinai, to get the tablets. Man Amar B'Shiva, the opinion that says that the revelation at Sinai was on the 7th day of Sivan, or the 10 Commandments were given on the 7th day of Sivan, B'Shiva Nitnu B'Shiva Ala Moshe. He holds that on the same day that he got the 10 Commandments, he also Moshe went up on the 7th day. So according to both opinions, Moshe Rabbeinu went up to heaven on the 7th day of Sivan. One opinion says we got the revelation on the 6th. The other opinion says we got the revelation on the 7th, but it doesn't matter. Everyone agrees that Moshe went up on the 7th day of Sivan. B'Shiva Nitnu, B'Shiva, okay. Right, so Dechsiv, as it says, Vayikral Moshe B'Yom HaShvi. It says on the 7th day he called to Moshe. And the understanding is that this is the 7th day of Sivan. Now, the Gemara continues. It says,
you're saying that he went up to heaven. Don't we understand it as that he went up physically to the place? He didn't go up like in a heavenly ascent, or did he?
Well, he went up the mountain, and he was with Hashem in heaven. I mean, whatever that means. You know, the famous medrash is that they looked up to heaven and they saw his body in a casket, so they thought that he died. I mean, he obviously was not on the top of the mountain physically where they could see him. You know what I mean? So he ascended the mountain, and then ultimately he was accepted up there in Shamayim. What exactly is Shamayim in the heavens, like the way we understand it, the way we look up, or is it on earth? You know what I mean? This is the spiritual heavens. Where exactly is the world of Atzilus? Or, you know,
I was thinking that it was the physical sky. It was the sky that they're referring to as the heavens. They looked heavenwards, and they saw in the sky that the clouds made this form.
That's where they looked. But physically, where was Moshe at that time?
Yeah, I thought he was physically up there.
In heaven.
Oh,
hey, in heaven. Is it the outer space? You know, but you know, when we reach that level, we can we'll know.
It's not a physical space. We have to get out of this 3 or 4 dimensional thinking in terms of whatever.
However you want to explain
that was his liftoff point or his takeoff point.
Rabbi?
That's right. His takeoff point was the mountain. Where the end point is, that David will have to,
Rabbi?
I'll have to think about. Yes, Moshe.
The Kahal saw the sky was gray. It was very gray. So that's where they assumed that he had passed, because the whole sky was gray.
Right, but this has it doesn't tell us where he actually was. You know what I mean? This is all
but people assume, even today, I've heard
the assumption.
The sky is gray, that people are dead. People have passed, you know, when it's rainy, or, you know, so it's
I understand. Again, you know, if you want to know the official location of Moshe, if he had a cell phone at that time, he could have maybe tracked it, but he didn't. So he was somewhere in Shamayim. Whatever
it was more than this. It was more than the sky was gray, Moshe. They showed it. He was shown. The people were shown an actual form in the clouds or in the sky of him being dead.
Yeah,
So I'm going to continue. So the Gemara says that this was on the seventh day he went up. He went in the midst of the cloud and he ascended the mountain. He was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. And Esrim, the Arba, the Sivan, for the 24 days of Sivan that were left in the month of Sivan. In other words, the month of Sivan was a 30-day month. And if he went there on the 7th, so you have
43 days.
There's if he went there, he went up on the 7th. So he was there for the 24 days of the month of Sivan, and the Shitzar, the Tammuz, and there was 16 days in the month of Tammuz. So 16 plus 24 equals how much? 16 and 24 is 40. Maluluhu Arban, that completes 40 days that he stayed on the mountain. And the night after that is when he came, or the next day is when he came down. And the different ways of calculating it. But ultimately, that's the 40 days. So, Malulu Arban, the Shivsa B'Tammuz Nachis, he came down on the 17th, and he broke the tablets. Svarinu is the same word as shavar. Uksiv, and it says, it says as he came close to the camp, and he saw the golden calf, and he threw them. They broke the tablets, and under the mountain, or at the bottom of the mountain. So basically, we have here altogether, there's 40 days from the going up to the mountain until the coming down, and that's when he broke the tablets. And it comes out that it's on the 17th day of Tammuz, because he was there for a full 40 days, and ultimately he came down the next day, and that's the 17th of Tammuz, and he smashed the tablets, and that is considered a sad day, and one of the reasons for the Shiva Asar B'Tammuz fast. Now, if we look in Rashi over here says he went up on the 7th day to receive the tablets, and no one disagrees with that, meaning even if the two opinions that talk about when the revelation was, no one disagrees with when he went up. And it says the cloud, the glory of Hashem was on the mountain. The cloud covered it for 6 days, and he called to Moshe on the 7th day. And there are different opinions. Was this at least the way we're understanding it is this was after Matan Torah, and from the 7th day until the 17th of Tammuz is 40 days, 24 of Sivan, in other words, and 16 of Tammuz is 40, and there's 40 days that Moshe was on the mountain. Now, what exactly, from the wording of our Gemara, getting back to David's question, I mean, it does sound like he was there on the mountain. We understand that he was in Shamayim, but I guess you have to look up the Midrashim and see exactly what that means. At least from the literal wording, it does see I was there for 40 days. Ahi Moshe Bahar. So I'm just mentioning from the literal. Of course, we have our understanding and our based on our assumption of the way we perceive the picture of Moshe. But the actual wording sounds like he was actually on the mountain. Obviously, we couldn't see him there or whatever. But and maybe that that's where Shamayim, what do we know? Where's Olam Haba? Is it in a physical place that's different here? It could be right next door to us. It could be right here in front of us. It could be Olam Haba. There's some soul standing right here who's in Olam Haba. So a little hard to know exactly. I mean, maybe there's Kabbalistic books that might mention, give us a little more understanding. But from the actual wording from the psukim, it sounds like it was actually on the mountain.
The wording here, the pasuk is a little unusual. It says Vayal el Hahar. So instead of saying he went up onto the mountain, it says he went up into the mountain.
To the mountain. Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. True. In any event, that is the 40 days that Moshe was on was there, and ultimately it's the 17th of Tammuz. Then comes the next Gemara. It's Batal HaTamid. The 17th of Tammuz, the Tamid, the daily sacrifice of the lamb was discontinued. And the Gemara says that's a Gemara. That's a tradition that we have, that it stopped on the 17th of Tammuz. And then the next one is the Huvka year. The city was breached. The Gemara asks, Huvka year biyud Zayin Hava? Was it breached on the 17th? Bihaksiv, doesn't it say b'chodesh haravi b'tishal l'chodesh v'yachzak harav ba'ir, that it was on the 4th month, which would mean Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz. It would mean the month of Tammuz. But it's on the 9th day of the month, and the famine was strong, was severe in the city. Ksiv Basrei, and it says right after that verse, Bati Baka Ho'ir, the city was breached. So it sounds like it was on the 9th of Tammuz, not on the 17th of Tammuz. The Gemara answers, Amar Rava like Kasha, it's not a problem. That pasuk that you're bringing from, where is that pasuk? By Chodesh Haravi'i B'Tisha L'Chodesh. That pasuk is in the book of Yirmiyah. And the book of Yirmiyah is all about the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash. So Rava says this is not a kasha. Our Mishnah is talking about the fact that the city was breached. You're bringing me a pasuk about the first Beis Hamikdash when it was breached. The Rava says not a kasha. Kan b'rishayna, kan b'shniya. Your pasuk in Yirmiyah is talking about the first Beis Hamikdash. Here in the Mishnah, we're talking about the second Beis Hamikdash. The second Beis Hamikdash, the city was breached. And after the siege, it was breached on the 17th of Tammuz. Tanya, because we learned in a brisa, on the first Beis Hamikdash, that the date that the city was breached was on the 9th of Tammuz. Bishniya, in the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, it was B'Shiva Asar. It was on the.
A young man asked his grandfather, Grandpa, how did you live in the past without technology, without computers, without drones?
Someone's listening to something. So the question is, how did the thing is, the Gemara answers that the first Beis Hamikdash was taka, the breaching of the wall was on the 9th of Tammuz, but in the second Beis Hamikdash it was on the 17th day of Tammuz, and that's what we commemorate is the we commemorate the second Beis Hamikdash. Why do we commemorate the second Beis Hamikdash, not the first Beis Hamikdash? Why do we make a big if you have two options, the 9th of Tammuz or the 17th? Why are we choosing the 17th and not the 9th? So I understand the 17th is the second Beis Hamikdash, but the 9th is the first Beis Hamikdash. Well, why should we pick the 17th over the 9th? Maybe we should do both. So it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch in the Torah that basically you can't do both because it's too much of a burden on the community. And to do if you have a choice to do the first Beis Hamikdash, the second Beis Hamikdash, you do the second because you commemorate the second Beis Hamikdash because that's the one that we are suffering from now. In other words, we're in exile now from the second Beis Hamikdash, so therefore, that's what we are commemorating is the destruction, the breaching of the second Beis Hamikdash, which was on the 17th day of Tammuz. So now another thing that happened was Apostomus burned Torah, and this, the Gemara says, is a Gemara. This is a tradition, and that's we know that happened on the 17th day of Tammuz. I should mention there is a discussion. I think there's a Yerushalmi that says that really both Beis Hamikdash, both the breaches that happened in the Beis Hamikdash, I'm sorry, in Yerushalayim, the breach around the city of Yerushalayim, even the first Beis Hamikdash really did happen on the 17th of Tammuz. But the pasuk, they were so overwhelmed with the tsaras that the community somehow remembered it at the wrong date. Like there is a Yerushalmi that says that it definitely happened that they both happened on the 17th. Our Gemara Bavli says it's not true, but there is a Yerushalmi, if I'm not mistaken, that actually says that both the first Beis Hamikdash and the second Beis Hamikdash did take place. The breaching of the wall around the Yerushalayim both did take place on the 17th, and the fact that the pasuk says the 9th, it means that the people thought of it as the 9th because they just were so overwhelmed with the tsaras that the dates weren't able to keep track. Yes, David.
If I can read to you this paragraph, not only this whole thing with the first or second Beis Hamikdash by what you were talking about, the breaching of the walls, but also by the Talmud, the daily offering being nullified. It says opinions differ with regards to the Talmud Yerushalmi indicates that the 17th Tammuz marks the suspension of the Talmud, the daily offering, during the period of the second Beis Hamikdash. Some commentaries maintain that this occurred during the first Beis Hamikdash. He refers to Rambam. And then according to Rashi, the daily offering was canceled due to a decree banning its sacrifice because of the ruling of foreign authorities. And others write that the Talmud was canceled because the necessary animals were no longer available. I think you mentioned this a while ago, because of the siege of Yerushalayim. So there was two different reasons given as to why the Talmud was nullified. Not only the first or second Beis Hamikdash opinions, but it was also the reasoning behind them.
Correct. There's I think we mentioned all this when we learned the Mishnah.